Listen carefully, because what you are about to discover is not what you were taught at home, or at school, or in those self-help books written by men who never understood the true game of power or attraction. I didn't come to talk to you about love. I came to talk to you about obsession. A woman can love you and forget you. He can wish you and leave you. But when a woman becomes obsessed with you, when you enter her mind and become that constant thought that she can't escape, then you no longer play the same game as everyone else. Then you have the power. And don't get me wrong, it is not a question of manipulating it. It is about understanding the invisible rules of desire and use them masterfully. Because, listen to me, attraction is a silent battle. And in that war, the naive fall, the impulsive lose, and strategic ones govern. If a prince can conquer a kingdom without shedding a single drop of blood, then you can conquer a woman's mind without begging, without empty flattery, without pursuing her like a beggar of affection. I have observed human nature from power. And what I discovered about men, it also applies to women, because everyone, regardless of gender, is susceptible to the same impulses: admiration, mystery, superiority, danger, and the desire to feel chosen. There are 5 traits that, if you develop them, will make you a man who not only attracts, but it scores. That not only like, but remains stuck in the memory like an emotional tattoo that cannot be erased. But before I reveal the first one to you, I want you to understand one essential thing. Men who despair for love lose. Men who believe that only by being good will they earn their interest are mistaken. And men who need female validation to feel valuable, they will never govern anything, not even their own emotions. So the first transformation starts from within. I need you to stop acting like a subject waiting for a crumb of attention, and you start thinking like a prince who knows that his presence is already a gift. The first trait that arouses obsession, it is emotional self-sufficiency, but not in the modern and superficial sense. I'm talking about that imperturbable calm that only the man who has already seen chaos, has been alone, has been ignored, and yet it does not break. It's that kind of strategic coldness that makes a woman wonder why it doesn't affect you. Why don't you get upset? Why don't you chase it? When you don't react with need, when you don't try to earn it, when you don't fall into the game of constant validation, something changes in it. His mind comes into conflict, because it can't put you in the same mold as everyone else. And that, it drives her crazy. A woman can ignore a man who idolizes her, but she cannot ignore the man who does not need to idolize her. And here's the Machiavellian secret. The quieter your emotional control, the louder the curiosity you arouse. That's why you don't need to demonstrate superiority. You just need not to surrender your soul to it. That's what makes you powerful. And listen to me, because this is the detail that almost no man understands. She doesn't obsess over the man who is available every second. He becomes obsessed with the man whose mind he cannot read completely, with the man who does not react with anxiety, but with strategy, that does not beg but observes, that does not beg but decides. And when he can't predict you, start imagining. And what you imagine is almost always more intense than what you really are, because now you're not struggling to impress her. You're letting your own mind do the work for you. Obsession is born from emptiness, not from saturation. It's not your constant presence that catches her, it's your selective absence. It's the way you disappear at just the right time, leaving a question unanswered, a story unclosed, an emotion unresolved. That, my friend, that is worth 1,000 words. And when you come back, you don't come back to beg for attention. You come back as someone who is not looking for approval, but as one who is evaluating whether she still deserves your approach. I repeat, emotional self-sufficiency is not coldness without a soul. It is control with purpose. It is knowing that not everything is answered, not everything is delivered, not everything is explained. Because every time you give up your emotional control to please her, you are giving up the throne. And what is not respected, it is not desired. That's why every gesture of yours must be measured, not to be artificial, but to be shocking, not to hide from you, but to make you unforgettable. Your gaze, your pause, your silence, your calm refusal, your distance when she expected proximity, all of that creates a narrative in his mind, a story that begins to revolve around you without her noticing. And when a story has you at its center, there is no other protagonist who can replace you. This, of course, is only the beginning, because the second trait, the one that truly lights the fuse of uncontrollable desire, it's even more powerful, and it's linked not to what you show, but to what you hide. But I'll reveal that to you in the next moment. I told you that the first trait was emotional self-sufficiency. Now listen carefully, because the second, although more subtle, has a devastating power over the female psyche. It is the domain of mystery, and here I am not talking about pretending. I'm not interested in you acting like you're someone interesting. I'm interested in you becoming a man whose presence leaves more questions than answers. A man who never delivers all his letters. Because a transparent man is easy to read, and everything that is easy soon ceases to be fascinating. Listen to me. What attracts a woman the most is not what she knows about you, but what he does not yet know and wants to discover. The human mind cannot stand the vacuum of information. When something doesn't quite fit, when there's a missing piece in the puzzle, the brain becomes obsessed. You need to close the loop. He needs to understand you. He needs to know what you really think when you go quiet. Why didn't you say everything? Why did you change the subject just when I was going to ask you something personal? That unresolved space becomes an abyss that he begins to fill with his imagination. And what he imagines, believe me, is far more powerful than any story you could tell him. Your selective silence is a tool. Don't run away from him. Men who feel insecure tend to over-explain themselves. They talk too much. They confess their intentions too soon. They are desperate to be understood. And in the process, they become boring. You're not going to do that. You will master the art of saying little, but with precision. You're going to leave little clues like mental crumbs that she can follow, but never lead to the full answer. And most importantly, you're going to act with intention. Everything you share will have an emotional or symbolic charge that pushes her to want more. A comment that is not explained, a look that is not justified, a gesture that she cannot decipher. This creates tension. And unresolved emotional tension is one of the strongest factors in obsessive attraction, because if everything is said, there is no more to wait. But if there is anything left unclosed, she is not leaving. You can't. This is where the Machiavellian comes in. Mystery is not something you simply have or don't have. It is a strategy. It is an art that is trained, and it is based on a single idea. Curiosity is an emotion that enslaves more than pleasure. When a woman feels pleasure with you, she desires you, but when he is also curious, he ties himself up. There is no worse torture for an inquisitive mind than not being able to fully understand you. And I'm not talking about faking darkness or playing with their emotions in a toxic way. No, I'm talking about building a selective aura to protect your inner world as a territory that not everyone can tread. She doesn't need to know your deepest fears, your future plans, or your past hurts in the first week. She needs to feel like there's a castle behind your eyes, and that the doors are not open to just anyone. And when it's time to open up, do it slowly, with deliberation, so that they feel that every revelation of yours is a privilege, not a right. This is power. The man who shows himself whole, without filter and without control, can generate sympathy. But it rarely generates obsession. The one who keeps 30% of himself, the one who leaves spaces open, the one who sows subtle doubts, that's what becomes an emotional enigma. And when you're the enigma, she becomes the investigator. She begins to dig, to test you, to analyze your gestures, to read between the lines, to try to break your silences. And without realizing it, you're already in. Now there's something you need to know. Mystery by itself is not enough, because if you're just a distant or cryptic man with no direction or purpose, you'll end up looking disinterested or empty. Therefore, this second trait must always be connected with the third, one that generates an addictive mix between fascination and respect. And it is the following: the power of subtle influence. Don't confuse this with obvious manipulation. It's not about controlling it. It's about becoming a man whose frame of thought is so strong that without telling her what to do, she begins to adapt to you. This happens when you don't compete for its validation, but rather implicitly invite it to align with your worldview. How do you do it? First, by making it clear that you don't trade your values or your lifestyle for someone else. Not even for her, not for anyone. Second, by maintaining a firm opinion, but without the need to impose it. And third, modeling security not through empty words, but with coherent actions. An example: when you talk to her, don't ask her what she wants to do to please her. Explain what you would do, what you prefer, what you enjoy, and then see if it aligns or resists. Most men submit from the beginning. They seek to adapt to what she expects, to what she likes, to what she has said on her social networks. Not you. You invite and you wait. That small psychological twist is brutal because it puts her in the position of someone who evaluates whether she can be at your level, not the other way around. And if she feels that you live from your inner axis, not from external validation, she begins to feel an unconscious need to be part of your world. That's how leaders work. They don't demand loyalty, they inspire attraction. And when she starts to see you as a man who doesn't bend, who doesn't adapt to be liked, who has a strong frame of mind, something is awakened inside him: respect. And there is no true desire without respect, because a man can be attractive without being respected, but it will never be desired in the long term. So now you have 3 keys: emotional control, mystery, and subtle influence. But there are still 2 more. 2 that not only elevate your presence, but they make it unforgettable. You've come this far because you already know it deep down. The game is not won with compliments, flowers, or cheesy messages. You win with presence. with that masculine energy that doesn't ask permission, that doesn't seek to please, but drags. And that brings us to the fourth feature, one that very few men develop, but that makes them an indelible emotional experience: the stage mastery. When I say scenic, I don't mean acting. I mean what you transmit with your mere presence, how you speak, how you move, how you get into a place, how you take up space without even opening your mouth. Ordinary men try to stand out by talking a lot, men who generate obsession. They dominate with silence and posture. You are not there to fill the air with words. You are there for your energy alone to condition it. See the most magnetic men in history. They were not the most handsome, not even the nicest. They were the ones who knew how to be present. Firm feet, paused movement, controlled breathing, pauses when speaking, sustained eye contact. None of this is accidental. Everything communicates status. Everything activates a subliminal message. I am the center of gravity here. And this is key, because a woman can be attracted to many men, but he only becomes obsessed with the one who changes the atmosphere when he enters, the one who is clearly not in a hurry, that he does not apologize for existing, that is not afraid to take up space. And you don't need to shout or be the most outgoing. What you need is to remove body language from doubt, of the rush, of insecurity. Don't feel like someone who is looking to fit in. You feel like you already belong. You don't bow when you speak. You don't look away. You don't laugh nervously to be liked. All of that takes away your power. Your voice should be low, not because of volume, but because of calmness. Because he who masters his tone dominates the tension of the moment. And that tension, it's addictive. Women perceive even the smallest detail of nonverbal language. And when you emit signals of subtle leadership, the one that is not imposed, but is felt, something in his subconscious is activated. It does not rationalize it, he does not explain it, he just feels it. And that's what we want, to feel that I can't help but watch you, that he analyzes you without understanding why, that even when you are not there, I continue to think about what your gaze was like, your silence, your way of being. Your body is your first speech, and the most powerful. You can have the best ideas in the world, but if your body energy doesn't sustain them, they will be ignored. On the other hand, if your presence says, I am a man who dominates his environment, then you don't even need to talk much to generate impact. And here comes the Machiavellian key. You don't want to be nice. You want to be inescapable. You want that even when you don't speak, she feels something moving inside her. That your energy remains impregnated in his skin, like an invisible perfume that cannot be washed off. And that is not achieved by being the nicest. It is achieved with intention. Now listen carefully. For the fifth trait, the last is the most dangerous, and also the most addictive, a trait you can't fake, that is felt, perceived, and passes through your nervous system like an emotional discharge. I'm talking about the emotional intensity contained. This is not being emotionally chaotic. It's not about being dramatic. It is the opposite. It's knowing how to contain a fire without turning it off. It is to show that under that calm, there is a brutal force, that you are not neutral, but that you choose when to release your emotions. And when you do it with purpose. A man who lives anesthetized does not obsess anyone, but a man who radiates intensity without overflowing, who knows when to look with desire, when to show vulnerability in a precise second, when to speak passionately about what he loves and then return to silence. That man enters the mind and does not come out, because she feels that there is something wild about you, but tamed. A volcano? In the shape of a statue, and that generates an attraction that is difficult to explain, because it doesn't know if you're danger or refuge, if it can get lost in you or if you will be the one who disappears first. And that ambiguity, it is emotional dynamite. The woman begins to wonder, what moves him, what excites you, what makes it vibrate? How can I be the one to get it out of your control? What if he ever loses his cool for me? And without knowing it, she is already hooked, because when it imagines your intensity, it's already in the game. A game that you control, because you never give yourself completely, because you decide when to show, when to hide, when to scale. And in every decision of yours, she feels her excitement grow, without being able to stop it. That is where the real obsession is born. Not physical contact, not gifts, not from promises, but of the unresolved emotional tension, sustained by a man who knows what he generates and uses it wisely. So recap, it's not about being perfect, it's about being unforgettable. And a man becomes unforgettable when he combines emotional control, mystery, subtle influence, stage mastery, and contained emotional intensity. 5 traits, 5 weapons, 5 ways to mark your mind forever. And we're not done yet. Now that you know the 5 traits that ignite obsession in a woman's mind, you should understand this. It's not about creating a mask. It is about embodying a new type of man, one that stops reacting, and he begins to direct. Because in the end, it is not she who chooses you. It is the aura you emit that drags her along, what seduces her without words, what makes her begin to imagine you even when you are not present. And if you master these 5 traits, you'll no longer be just another one on their list. And you will become that exception that cannot be removed from your head. But listen to me carefully. This is not a one-time gimmick. This isn't a costume you wear on a weekend to look attractive. This is a core shift, a change in your energy, in your way of thinking, in your way of inhabiting the world. For I assure you this, a woman can easily forget the man who entertained her, but she will never forget the man who altered her perception of herself, the one that made him feel something that no one else knew how to awaken. That he is the kind of man I would mold if I had to train a modern prince, one who doesn't ask for love, but it inspires desire, one that doesn't expect to be approved, but it becomes unforgettable. And if you still doubt, if you still think that this is exaggerated, think, why are there men who do not stand out physically, who do not have great achievements, but who still leave an indelible mark on women? The answer is simple. They emit internal signals that the world does not show, signals that come from the mental structure of contained power, of non-verbal intention, from such a strong personal narrative that women want to be part of it. You can become that kind of man, but it's not enough to know, it must be applied. And to apply it, you must start by training perception. Watch how you walk, listen to how you speak, analyze what you communicate with your silence. Question every time you give up your energy for fear of losing it. Because here's the ultimate secret that few dare to face. When you lose your center to a woman, you stop being the man she wanted. She doesn't want to win you over easily. She wants to feel that if you choose her, it's because you saw something that earned your focus, not because you crawled in search of affection. That's why, from today, don't try to make him obsessed with you. Make it have to deserve to discover you, because that's where the difference between temporal desire is born and deep obsession. And now, if you have come this far, it is because something within you is ready to ascend. Something inside you has already understood that true seduction is not an external game, but an internal conquest. But tell me, are you going to keep only this information? Or are you going to start testing what happens when you walk into a room without anxiety and make the environment tilt towards you? Because this is not about theories. It's all about practice, of tension, of language, of gaze, to know when to speak and when to just let her feel. And if this has awakened something in you, if these words have made you see the game with new eyes, then listen to my last command as a seduction strategist. Don't leave in silence. Share this, because true men are not formed alone. They are formed in community. And if you're ready to become that lethal, unforgettable, magnetic version, then don't keep this to yourself. Make your mark below. Write. Tell me which of these traits you already have, and which one you need polishing. I want to read it, because while others continue to beg for love, you are learning to generate obsession, and that it already puts you on another level.